In this demo, we'll have a closer look at the providers. As you can see on the screen, we have an AWS provider configured and we have specified the required properties. Right now we are in Terraform registry website. Here we can browse to various providers provided by Terraform. And there are few providers which are not maintained by Terraform. Those providers also can be used. So this is the common website where you can check the documentation of the providers. So we'll click on Browse Providers. Here you see a list of providers. We have providers from almost all the major cloud vendors: AWS, Azure, GCP, Kubernetes, Alibaba. And we learned that each provider adds a set of resource types that Terraform can manage. So we are back to our Atom editor where we'll write configuration for Terraform. Let's go to exercises, and going to the Terraform folder, you will notice a provider is already downloaded. So this download happened when last time in the previous demo we executed a command init. This will download the latest provider depending on the version that you have specified. So that latest provider is already downloaded. So now we want to install Azure provider. So go to the documentation for Azure, and here you will see an example. We need to copy the code which starts from provider, and for every provider we have many features. We already noticed for Amazon we have region name, the security credentials. Some parameters are mandatory. So we are going to copy the provider code, sample code for Azure. Okay, I'm just going to remove the features. I'll keep the basic skeleton structure of the provider. Okay, that's it. Save the file. Copy the path where this file is stored, and we'll go to command prompt to execute this. Go to this particular directory and see the file for the confirmation. We have got EC2 Terraform file here. Now the time has come to execute Terraform init. This is going to check what providers you are asking for, and it is going to download those providers. So as you can see here, Azure RM provider is downloading, and the successful download message we can see. So go to your folder structure, and within your providers you can see Azure as well, along with your AWS, which got downloaded earlier on. And 2.82 is the latest version. Okay, going back to the main directory for Terraform. So .terraform contains the providers that is downloaded when you run the init command. Okay, so we have now two providers installed on our local machine, one for Azure and the other one we downloaded earlier was for AWS. So now we are back to our editor code. One more time you can see a provider for AWS, and you have resources. Going back to AWS console, and these are list of services. I'll go to EC2 and check the status of my machine. Right now there is no machine because we deleted our previous machine, and I will also encourage you, if you are using a free tier account, to keep on checking your resources to avoid unnecessary build. Okay, let's go to AWS provider and go to documentation. On the left hand side you will see a number of resources where you can take a sample code. So for example, EC2 we have many properties. EC2 we have an IP address. EC2 we have a local gateway. Many properties which are associated to EC2. And AWS underscore instance is the main one which helps you to create your machine, a virtual machine on cloud. So if you want to create a particular machine, a Linux machine or an Ubuntu machine, you can get a sample code from here. Okay, and there are a few more details. Please have a look at this. If you want to create a single IP address to a machine, there are things like elastic IP, which are used to give a fixed IP address to an EC2 instance. Okay, let's go to providers, and we will now try a provider which is being maintained by a company other than HashiCorp. So I gave a few examples related to this. DigitalOcean is one of those. So let's search DigitalOcean provider. Okay, so click on DigitalOcean and we'll look for the sample code. Okay, here you have the first Terraform snippet where the version you can specify it, and the provider DigitalOcean with the properties token. Going back to editor, let's add our new provider DigitalOcean, and just like we did with the Azure, we're going to remove the properties and let's try installing the provider. So from your console, run the command terraform init. Okay, now you will see a difference. We have got an error, it's failed to query the available provider package. This command worked fine for our Azure. So what is the difference? The difference here is we discussed DigitalOcean provider is being maintained by DigitalOcean and not by HashiCorp. So we need to add this extra settings which becomes mandatory for those providers which are not provided by HashiCorp. So this optional setting becomes mandatory for providers not provided by Terraform. And after adding this, let's try again. So by adding the main definition of a particular provider, it has started working. So we learned how to download providers which are maintained by HashiCorp and how to download providers which are not maintained by HashiCorp, and both turned out to be pretty straightforward. So let's go and check the provider whether it got downloaded, and as you can see here we have this DigitalOcean and we have a HashiCorp, so which means HashiCorp maintained. Azure and AWS are inside the HashiCorp folder, and for DigitalOcean it created a separate one. So it seems for all the non-maintained HashiCorp providers it creates a separate folder. So init command helps in downloading those providers that you can later on use to create resources. So this completes the demo. In this demo we learned how to download providers, what are the different types of providers, and we downloaded first of all AWS provider, then Azure, and in the end DigitalOcean provider.
For more details, check the link in the description. Learn with Whizlabs. Success certified.